You are about to journey against the current of contemporary thought and beyond the troubled waters of daily news to the very source of our extraordinary culture. You are going upstream with Cashel and Edge.
Hey, welcome, Roy.
Hey, Jack.
You know, just before we got on the air, I was saying that I keep running into people who say, "Hey, well, I really like your show. This is Upstream with Cashel and Edge."
Oh, that's nice.
And they'll say that Lloyd guy is great. Okay.
Jack, they just know you too well.
I'm like, old.
You're the star, man.
No. Actually, it's although my name comes first, so if that means anything, I get top billing.
I think that was an elder thing, but
Wars have been fought in Hollywood over who gets top billing.
I remember that. Who's the top banana?
Right. Henry Fonda or Tyrone Power? It goes on and on. But the subject today of our show is the state of humor.
A jocular topic.
I hope so. It's odd.
Jovial.
There are people who could, occasionally I'll read a book on the history of humor, and the book will be so grossly unfunny. I'll say, "Gosh, you've chosen the wrong subject matter to."
It's just one of those things where we're treading on thin ice. When you go into dissect humor,
Right.
it's kind of like saying, come to my new place. It's really hip. It's like, oh, you screwed it up there, dude.
Already. Or if you
ain't
start
hip now.
Hey, let's say you're telling a joke, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of people do this. This is the funniest joke I've ever heard, right? So they set up an expectation that they can never live up to. I always thought it was better to sort of ease into a joke, like when you hear a would-be segue that you could add a punchline.
Yeah. I mean, there was one guy in Kansas City I can think of named Lud Gaines.
Uh-huh.
A lot of people knew Lud.
Yeah.
He was a big joker.
Yeah.
And he was the only guy I knew who could carry it off. He laughed so hard at his own damn joke before he got the punchline out that you were laughing more at that than the joke. And he seemed to have great success with that formula.
Well, there's just there's really a handful of naturally funny guys.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stand-up comedians who are not funny at all, who try hard and can tell jokes, but aren't intrinsically funny. Well,
I know one guy. Anyway, we'll talk about him soon.
I was watching. I was reminded of the state of humor in America today. I was watching. I went back and watched this critical scene in what I think is one of the great movies of recent years, and it's probably the best movie about communism ever made. And it's called The Lives of Others. Mm-hmm. Have you ever seen that?
No.
It's a German
Heard
movie.
a lot about it.
And you need to watch it.
It's on my list.
Yeah, right. On the
It's on my
list.
cinema list. Yeah.
But it's in subtitles, so you'd have to be able to read,
Okay.
which might be an obstacle for you.
I'll brush up
Yeah, right. But the subtitles are in English, so.
because I don't read anymore.
There's a pivotal scene early in the movie, and these guys work for the Stasi in East Germany, circa 1984, and the year chosen probably purposefully by the filmmaker who's German. And our protagonist, we don't even know who he is yet. He's this gray figure who just blends into the background, not good looking, not tall, not anything. But he's, and it's halfway through the movie before you realize he's our protagonist. He's the good guy. We don't know that because he's a Stasi guy. He's doing what Stasi guys do. But in this scene, he's sitting there with a couple other buddies in the cafeteria. Mm-hmm. And this young guy comes in. He's a young lieutenant in the Stasi. And he says, "Hey, I just heard a good one," right? And he goes, Honecker, who's the Secretary General of East Germany at the time, opens a window one morning and he sees the sun, and then he sees the guys are freezing, right? And he knows something's wrong. And he looks over and he sees the boss, who's sitting within earshot, like a table away. And then the boss says, "No, continue. I want to hear how this joke goes," right? And then this guy, now he looks totally nervous. He's rattled, but okay, I got to tell the rest of the joke. So he goes, "Anyhow, Honecker, no, I mean, the Secretary General sees the Sun, and he addresses the Sun. It's early in the morning, and he says, "Hello, Mr. Sun." And the Sun comes back to him and says, "Hello, Secretary General. How are you this morning?" You know? And then at midday, he sees the Sun overhead, and he says, the Secretary General says, "Hello, Mr. Sun. How are you?" And the Sun comes back very chipperly. He goes, "Oh, I'm fine, Mr. Secretary General. Have a good day." And then at the end of the day, as the sun is setting, the Honecker sees the Sun, and he says to the Sun, "Sun, how are you today?" And the Sun doesn't respond. And then he says, "Sun, how are you today? Is something wrong?" And the Sun turns to him and says, "My ass is in the West. The Secretary General, don't bother me." You know. So the point being now that this escape to the West, right? He tells the joke. Everyone, right? And the boss is over there, and he says, funny joke. And then he turns to the joke teller and he says, "Name, title, department," right? So in those quarters, joke telling was verboten. I mean, a good German word there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a very good movie. I don't know if you've ever seen this. It's a documentary. Came out in about 2006. It's called
I'll answer in advance. No, I haven't seen it. Okay.
Hammer and Tickle.
No.
And it goes through all the use of jokes in the Soviet Union as a means of survival, right?
Boy, that sounds like a real belly scratcher there.
It's actually a very good movie, very funny.
Okay.
These guys are great. I mean, to survive in the Soviet Union and to work your way around the authorities telling jokes is no easy thing.
Yeah, I went to Catholic school.
You know
I know
what
what
it's
it's like.
But, you know, when I saw the lives of others and, you know, and the Sun says, "Hey, I'm in the West, kiss my ass," I'm thinking, well, I'm in the West, so I don't have to worry about these things, right? I
remember
identify
those
with
days,
the West.
yeah.
We don't have to worry about not being able to tell jokes, but we do, don't we?
We sure do. We sure do. We should have gotten a clue when there were other words we couldn't say all of a sudden.
Yeah.
That it wouldn't be long before we'd be pulling the punchlines.
Right, exactly. I have a story in that line. I'm going to use a word that no one, it's, you know, and now there's certain words you cannot say.
Yeah.
Like we have to say, now we know the N word, and we're infantilized by limiting our vocabulary. But and now you can't say, they say the F word, and they don't mean the FU word.
They don't mean the FU
They
word.
mean the FAGG word, you know. But this word, the D word, I think is still in play. The D as in slang for lesbians, right?
Mm.
So I presumed it was still in play. And there's groups called like Dykes for Trikes. I mean, like was it Dykes for Bikes or Bikes for Dykes or, you know, various things. They make, within their own circles, they could use that word. So this is something.
Right. There was a gay group used to meet in Westport, and they called themselves Fruits and Suits.
Right. I mean, so internally you can, just like the N word is used into oblivion by N's, you know, or people who identify as N's.
Like when I greet you, "Hey, you pasty old cracker." And you laugh and you go, "Yeah, you."
Yeah, you turkey. That's another old anti-white slang. You bleach-faced turkey. No, we don't do that. But I'm at a dinner, and my wife's a professor, right? And these are professorial types. And we had gone to Lawrence with these people, and we watched a Judy Collins concert, right? You know, the singer.
Sure.
Both Sides Now, and sort of stuff. I always liked Judy Collins. I always thought she
I
was.
tolerated it.
Yeah, right. Did you ever date her?
No.
Okay.
No, she's a little old for me.
Yeah, she was. We have the same initials, though, she and I, so we're closer. And so we come back. We're having dinner at this one couple's house. There's a total of 3 couples. And someone says, "Well, how'd you like the concert, Jack?" And I actually liked the concert. I said, "I liked the concert," but I said, "I haven't seen this many dykes since I was in the Netherlands, you know." And Boy, it was like the guy telling the Hunziker joke in East Germany. It just felt like a total lead balloon on that table. In fact, the hostess scolded me, right? I say, hey, I thought Dykes was still in play. I'm not saying this. I wasn't even saying it derogatorily, I was just saying as observationally, say there's a lot of Dykes here. And I said, I can't tell a joke about, it's like, I haven't seen that many lesbians since what? I mean, there's no joke here, right?
Oh, there are tons of them. You just aren't going to say it.
It reminds me, I'm just going to digress.
Since a remodeling show.
Yeah, right.
I don't know.
I just digress a second. Usually, when I'm writing a book, I try to oblige my editors when they make a suggestion, right? Because you don't want to. You get more book contracts, by the way, if you.
Yeah, throw them a bone.
Right, if you're nice to the editors and you do your projects on time.
Let them put their thumbprint on it.
Right, but in this one case where I had to object, and I was saying there is as many varieties of. I've said something like, I don't know, give me something. Forget the first part of the analogy. Something has as many varieties of something as Eskimos do of snow, right? As the punchline. Eskimos have like 28 different varieties of snow. And it comes back, Eskimos is taken out and they put in Inuits to do of snow. And I said to him, no, it doesn't work with Inuit.
Now you're getting into the old vaudeville. Inuit's not funny.
That's right. Yeah,
you gotta have a k. You gotta have a k sound. Eskimo. That's funny.
Right, the K. Right. That's right. Who does that? I've seen that done.
I don't know.
But so I couldn't say, there's no joke you could tell around the word lesbian. There's no play on words. But nonetheless, I was upbraided.
Yeah.
And then there's the question of how do you respond to that when you're at a dinner party at someone's house, right?
Well, it just depends on, how many drinks you've had and
right.
What kind of fireworks you want to ensue.
Right. How willing are you to walk out of the room without eating?
Yeah.
How far into the meal are you? I should say that my hostess, who upbraided me for my insensitive comment, later came out as a lesbian.
Well, there you have it.
Yeah. So
who's laughing now?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Had I known she was in that process, and that sensitive process, I probably would have used Eskimos rather than, I haven't seen so many Eskimos since.
I'm sure that her husband probably was kind of sensitive about that joke too.
Probably was. I think he sensed it a long time ago. Probably knew what was going on. Anyhow, but that's just the nature of humor today. You got to be very careful what you say and where you're saying it. But now it's taken a darker turn.
It's institutionalized.
It's
like everything else.
It used to be able to just get you fired, right?
Yeah.
Now it can get you
where you can never work again.
Imprisoned.
Imprisoned. Oh man. Did we jump the shark?
We have jumped it. Officially jumped it. And
is it time to put the clicker down?
I don't know.
It time to quit? Put the fishing pole away and all these things and maybe wake up?
I think it may be. And it's a case that I'm sure you know about. This guy named Doug Mackey, right?
Yeah, I actually heard him interviewed the other day.
Yeah, did you see him on Tucker Carlson?
Yeah, it must have been Tucker.
Yeah. It's an incredibly compelling and frightening story.
Oh, it is.
Just in the way of background. At the time, this is in 2016 during the election, he is a 27-year-old economic researcher working in corporate America, living in New York City. And you saw him. He's from Vermont. He's totally laconic, laid back, undramatic. I mean, he's right out of a Grant Woods poster, right, if you're doing a modern one. Is it Grant Woods? The guy with the farmer?
Grant Woods.
Is that the name of the artist?
Yeah, I believe so.
I don't want to make a mistake here. I have my reputation at stake.
It's Grant Wood or Grant Woods. I don't remember which.
Yeah.
How many woods he had.
Yeah. It's not Grant Hill. He was a basketball player for Duke. It's probably some other Grant. But so he posts, he shares a meme. He doesn't create the meme. He shares it. And the meme has a picture of like a smiling Hillary Clinton. And it says,
So it was retouched.
yeah, right, exactly. Then upturn the lips, and throw some, happy makeup on her. And it said something like, voting for me, just text in your vote, or something to that effect, right? And then there's a bogus number where you text it in, right? And clearly a humorous thing. And this is in 2016.
Clearly, the inference was if you're stupid enough to vote for me, you're
Right.
stupid enough to think that you can just text your vote in randomly and it will count,
That's right. It's really less an attack on Hillary than on Hillary supporters.
which adds another whole element of irony to it when you think about that.
Yeah,
Because just the fact that they were protesting said our voters are stupid enough to believe this.
that's right. That's exactly right.
Right.
They thought their voters vulnerable to it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you know how Twitter works, and this is what people don't understand that don't get or don't choose not to, is that the only people who see your jokes are people in your universe.
Right.
This isn't leaking.
Friends of friends.
Right. And who get it, who understand what you're saying, and they're sharing the joke with you.
Excuse me.
Rarely does it leak into their world, the other world. And conversely, when I look at my Twitter feed, I only follow people. I don't follow people who are going to irritate me.
Man, I really know when I have put something on Facebook or Twitter or something that leaked into the other hemisphere.
Oh yeah, gosh.
Because, immediately, instead of 3 or 4 people yucking it up,
Right.
you get all these death threats and, you suck and how dare you. And
There is a real deep case of irony deficiency on the American left. I mean, sense of humor has died along with long before George Floyd did. I mean, it's been dead for 30, 40 years. Their inability to laugh at themselves and their willingness to take themselves seriously. But to your point, they're the ones who are inferring ill intent in a certain joke
right.
or a tweet. For instance,
It's projection.
right. So it was about 5 years ago. Roseanne Barr, then the star of her own show called Roseanne, tweets. Her tweet was, she's describing Valerie Jarrett as the
As
the child of the Muslim Brotherhood and Planet of the Apes.
Because of her hairdo,
And
which was a spot on of that one gal's hairdo
Right.
in Planet of the Apes.
yeah, right. I mean, so what happens is, of course, the PR people get to Roseanne and
Right.
they craft some BS apology, and she has to give it, but there's no mercy in their cult, no
No.
redemption.
No, they have like the same judge that Trump has.
Right, the lady in New York,
That court has no humor.
or the
Sorry.
guy in New York, right?
Boom.
No, or the lady in none of them have any sense of humor. So Roseanne is the star of her show.
Yeah.
The show is built around.
Built around her.
It's
yeah.
called Roseanne, right? And so then later on, after she got through realizing that apologies aren't going to do any good, that ABC is going to take her show away, she came back with her real sentiment, which was much more Roseanne-like. And Roseanne's pretty vulgar; it always has been. She goes, "I didn't know the bitch was white. I was black, rather, right? I didn't know the bitch was black." So, in other words, the audience that hears Planet of the Apes,
Right.
and they think African American
Automatically.
are the culprits.
Yeah. They
Right.
do the same thing with bananas and everything else.
Right.
It's just like any time they can, it's like, what?
Yeah, yeah,
I wasn't talking about black people when I mentioned bananas, but you were obviously thinking that way.
right. In fact, it's odd. And we self-censor when it comes to this.
Mm-hmm.
I did an article on this recently on the source of George Floyd's death, which is a subject for another day.
Right.
But when he's in that Cup Foods, the Palestinian-owned store where he's, passing counterfeit money.
Mm-hmm.
He's standing there for no reason holding a banana in his hand, So as I'm writing this, I choose not to comment on the fact that he's holding a banana in his hand. If he were holding a kiwi in his hand, you could say, oh, there's George Floyd. He's the guy with the kiwi in his hand, or the guy with the mango in his hand.
Right.
But you have to, because that they're going to read into it something that you're not intending, So that's what happened to Roseanne.
Yep.
But at that time, again, the consequences for telling a joke they don't like was simply you lose your show.
Mm-hmm.
And what was really treacherous, and she says so now too herself, is that the rest of the cast decided to, soldier on without her.
Right. And if you've ever wondered what it's like to be in business, it feels like that a lot of the times.
Being stabbed in the back by your own.
The people that you've gone to, to the carpet for, the people that you really stood up for.
Right.
And then all of a sudden you find out how important that paycheck really is.
That is, right. That's right. And
they all grabbed the check and said, goodbye, Roseanne.
Yeah, right.
We're going to carry on without you. And what'd they call the show from that point on?
That's a good question.
Nobody knows.
It's like the Roseanne show without Roseanne.
Right.
It was like in the
Noseanne show.
They call it the Connors. Was that the name?
Oh, yeah. The Connors, right.
With John Goodman and other backstabbers.
Mm-hmm.
I will say, when who was it? Phil Robertson got in trouble, who was the head of the Duck Dynasty, and he for just tweeting biblical verses about homosexuality, and they threw him off. Right? The Robertson family said, there ain't no show without Phil Robertson. Right? That's what you'd expect from from the people for whom you have created a universe, but not so with Roseanne. But Roseanne didn't go to jail. Our friend Doug Mackey was not so lucky.
That's really unbelievable. And in that case, it wasn't the content.
No.
It was who.
That's right.
Was involved. And that really should just chill the hell out of everybody.
Absolutely. And because they, as he tells the story, and you saw that interview, he goes 4.5 years. He never hears anything.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's at home 7 days after Biden's inauguration. That's how quickly they acted. 7 a.m. in the morning, 10 law enforcement people show up at his door, 4 of them FBI, banging on his door. He was asleep, as people are often at 7 o'clock in the morning in January. And he comes down and they put him in handcuffs and lead him away. Take him down to Bahrain, put him in leg shackles. He has no idea what he has done.
No.
Right? He hasn't even been on Twitter in 3 years. And 4.5 for a meme that he didn't create, but passed along, 4.5 years earlier. Now he finds himself being arraigned on charges of subverting an election, basically, a federal charge. And, I was sort of reading the articles about this, and they were titled things like, this is a literal title, MSNBC, Hillary Clinton has last laugh.
Oh, my God. Again, we get to leftists being quite all right with some innocent person rotting away in jail and having all their liberty taken and being in these horrible situations. They seemed so cavalier about that.
Totally.
That would just kill me. I mean, how can anybody with any kind of soul go through their day feeling okay, knowing that they're responsible for somebody rotting away in prison for no reason?
Right. I mean, that's Hillary Clinton, I mean, I worked on a case. I co-authored a book. This is a great guy, Terry Lakin, lieutenant colonel in the Army, doctor, flight surgeon. When he was being dispatched to Afghanistan for the second time, and no problem going, but they asked to see 5 copies of his birth certificate.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "I'm sorry, but as a constitutionalist, I'll happy to show my birth certificate is when the guy who sent me shows his." Right. This is before Obama did. Obama knew about this and made the news. All Obama would have had to do to keep Terry Lakin, the father of 3 mixed-race children, out of prison was to produce his birth certificate. And he wouldn't do it, right? So you let him go to prison and rot. That's where their heads are at today.
Mm-hmm.
And so, Tucker asks him, Mackey, how about the ACLU, right? The American Civil Liberties Union.
Yeah, right.
And it's like a punchline to a joke now.
Yeah.
To say, how about the ACLU, and what does that stand for, right? And they said, no, you were interfering with an election. And so they, did not come to his defense, to say the least, right? He gets tried in Brooklyn court, right? Where, based on the numbers, it's 10 of those jurors hate Donald Trump. And then he's convicted. And he said he's hoping
because Donald Trump beat Hillary.
Right. That's
so
right.
This is a direct jab at Donald Trump.
That's right.
Just like everything else winds up being, you mentioned one of the medications you can't mention, the one that starts with the H or the one that starts with the I.
Right.
And that becomes a hate Trump thing.
Right. Or the things that happen in a certain month at the beginning of the year.
Right.
that we can't talk about either.
And narrow seis.
There you go. I presume that's Spanish, but it's, I use the French Revolutionary calendar now.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the month of Thermidor.
Mm.
That's the only month I know, so I'll use that one. But so Mackey gets convicted.
Mm-hmm.
He was facing 10 years in prison. And the Department of Justice was bragging about this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they always get their man.
That's right. Can you imagine? You could do a whole spoof on the G-Men show of today, right? Where they're busting, pro-life fathers of 9 for pushing some thug, or in Britain where some woman's getting arrested for praying in public, silently even, right? But that's where we are. I mean, those shows wouldn't probably have too much power. I mean, it's not like the Ephraim Zimbalist days, Ephraim Zimbalist Jr. days when he did the FBI. Remember this?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. We became phone friends at the end. I don't know if I told you that, but he was big into intelligent design, the whole theory of, and I did a documentary. So I'd get calls at home. My wife would get it. Jack, it's Ephraim Zimbalist Jr. Okay. Yeah, I can take it. Yeah, I'm here. Yeah. So Mackey finally they give him 7 months, right?
That's nice of him.
Yeah. And, when I was thinking about this case, though, and there was, when Tucker Carlson interviewed him, what he was, the points of comparison were, he was talking about free speech and abuse of government power. And those are the things that come right to mind. There's also the element of unequal application of justice. Because on Election Day 2008, November 8th, Christina Wong posted a video of herself and wearing MAGA gear, right? She's a young Asian woman, pretty attractive. And she's especially dressing Asians for Trump, she says, and blacks for Trump. And she says, you today, save yourself a trip to the polls, text in your answer, your vote, right? And then she says, tomorrow on Super Wednesday, you can still vote, right? Her tweet is still posted. So comfortable are these people in their security in the hands of Biden justice that they don't even bother taking their tweets down. They don't bother hiding them. And that's where, and actually her thing was kind of funny. She probably stole it from Mackey or whoever else was circulating that Hillary meme. And Mackey wasn't the only one. It was just floating around the internet. But that's where we stand. What Tucker didn't get into, though, and this is, I think, a part of a larger story, and that is who was really subverting the 2016 election? Was it Doug Mackey with his meme? Or Hillary Clinton with her bought and paid for Russia hoax, right? And
which was inadvertently funny as hell.
I mean, inadvertently, yeah. I mean, because it was, and if you're making the contemporary Marx Brothers version of duck soup, yeah, you tell this story, right? But at the real time, think about it, because she's on a show. She shows up on a show right after Mackey is convicted, and she's on the show with Nancy Pelosi, and they're talking about. Hillary's talking about he crossed the line from free speech to interfering with an election. He was just making stuff up. That's where we're at today. People just make stuff up, and they post it on the internet. And I'm thinking, making stuff up, right? How about the Steele dossier, right?
Well, give Hillary credit. She does have a very good sense of humor because, she sees the humor in things like
murder.
Yeah, when you go in and Saddam Hussein is pleading for his life and you butcher him and you murder him and probably burn him and stomp on him and everything. But she said, we came, we saw, he died. I mean, that's the sense of humor.
Right. And
that gal's got it going on.
You got that quote. It is Gaddafi, by the way.
Gaddafi.
Which makes it even worse is because Gaddafi was our ally.
Right. He didn't do a damn thing, right?
No, he got rid of his WMDs. He was not part of a terrorist network. And his death, he died. You saw how he died. They sodomized him with a knife.
Oh, yeah.
Threw him on the back of a pickup truck.
I couldn't remember what it was, but it was so gruesome.
And then she laughs about it.
She was just getting a guffaw out of that.
Right, exactly.
So, who am I to question that sense of humor? She's got something going on there.
She laughs a lot. That is you know what I mean? That would have gotten Roseanne thrown off, TV, period, right? Forever, right? She would have been banished to the planet Pluto or something, if she had said made a joke like that, right? Can you imagine George Bush trying to make a joke like that about even about Hussein, Saddam Hussein, who was we were at war with, but this guy we weren't even at war with.
That's right. I got confused. Gaddafi and Hussein. Well, it's easy to mix them up, I guess.
You mix and match.
At my age,
you can play a board game.
Right.
And the Gaddafi in the the observatory with
guys we got mad at Osama bin Laden through, or whatever.
Guys we used and threw away,
It's time. Do we need another George Carlin to come out and say, here are the words you can't say anymore?
That would be good. George Carlin had his moments.
Oh, he had some brilliant stuff.
He did. And yet, when I go back and look at his stuff, his whole body of work is really inconsistent. Because some of the stuff is just, boilerplate leftism.
Yeah, but sometimes he really got into some great.
He did.
Great
and the things he does, like on climate change and on
the climate change rant was one of the all-time greats.
Right, and on words. But then you think back on who's the left's idol in terms of comedy historically? It was Lenny Bruce.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And
because he said bad words and
right. And I've gone back and watched Lenny Bruce routines.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't funny.
No, it wasn't any good.
I'm saying, okay, where's the joke? Where's the humor?
That whole March Saul, that whole genre.
Right. Of like commentary humor, right? Mort Saul was at least
Jack Carter. They didn't get into the politics as much as Lenny did, but
right. Now, see, Mort Saul say sort of gently on the left, just orthodox, boilerplate, liberalism, with a little twist. But Lenny Bruce was he aimed his whole shtick at offending and getting arrested, right, basically. Mm-hmm. And so what it came down to was just saying dirty words and repeating them often and then waiting for the cops to come, and then
It was a kind of an anti-Christian thing.
yeah, there was that. I mean,
Really?
it was just sort of proto-Marxism based on pulling down institutions, and so, but he became an icon on the left for getting arrested, basically.
So who are their heroes now?
Comedians?
Mm-hmm.
That's a good question. The Matt Walsh, and you know him.
Sure.
He does this thing where he'll go through looking at he'll review the work of, let's say, a given feminist comedian, looking for a joke, right? Looking for them to say some funny thing, right? And I watch these segments, and he's right. There's nothing funny about what they're saying, but it's all allowable because it's on their side. We have two systems, not only of justice, but we have two systems of humor. Things that you get fired for if you're person A, and things you don't get fired for if you're person B. So,
But bringing the judicial system in is a whole new level, isn't it?
It's a whole new level of evil, and it's something that, as Tucker said, this is, in the old America, there would be an uprising over this.
That's right.
People would be in the streets over this. But they're not. And especially, like I say, when you compare it to what Hillary Clinton and her cronies did in compiling the Steele dossier, which, as she said, when she was complaining about poor Doug Mackey, he was just making stuff up.
And she still, that was her illusion that was her trickery. She's still claiming that the Steele dossier is real.
Right.
Not directly.
Right.
But she's feathers around the edges so that anybody who's not part of the revelation that was all bogus is going to continue believing what was wrong.
That's right. And when, the Durham trials of, he put various people like Igor Danchenko and some other, low-hanging fruit Sussman. He was doing something useful that people didn't give him credit for because he knew he was never going to get a conviction in the D.C. court of anyone, where their jury pool was, in a 50-person jury pool, 48 of them would have voted for Hillary Clinton, literally. So he just used it to expose information. And one thing he exposed was how the Steele dossier was put together. And that is, Steele contracted out to Danchenko to give him information. And Danchenko was just making stuff up. And then Danchenko reached out to a Hillary operative named Charles Dolan, who also had deep Russian ties. And he made some stuff up, right? So then the FBI, desperate to get this in the process, so they could disqualify Trump before the election, offered Christopher Steele $1 million if he could corroborate anything, right? And he couldn't. And then, even though Danchenko proved to be a liar, they hired him as a confidential human source, right? Hoping to get some validation of these charges. And, this includes the famous, prostitutes peeing on Trump, who's notoriously antiseptic and, OCD-ish. And would not stand for that, or Michael Cohen going to Prague on a certain date. That's not hard to prove or disprove. The NSA could answer that one in 30 seconds, right? But no, it went ahead.
It was one of the other 20 million Michael Cohens.
Right, that's right.
Whatever.
But the net result was voter suppression. I mean, you have to ask yourself, who dissuaded more people from voting for their chosen candidate in November 2016? Hillary Clinton with the Steele dossier, Democrats and Hillary's campaign paid for that, or Doug Mackey and his meme.
Right.
I mean, this is ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
But Trump squeaks it out. So what happens is they keep the hoax going for 2 more years.
Yeah.
Through November 2018, right? And speaking about voter suppression again, what are the results in 2018? Okay, unemployment, historic lows, no new wars, winding down in Afghanistan, the market booming, 5.7% increase in GDP, right?
Immigration down to nothing.
Immigration down to nothing. Everything's going swimmingly, and the Republicans managed to lose more seats in the House than any year since post-Watergate tsunami, right? 41 seats in the House, because all the people read about was the stuff that Hillary's people just made up through 2018. 2018, the New York Times and Washington Post give themselves a Pulitzer Prize for national reporting, right? And Doug Mackey goes to prison.
It's unbelievable. I wonder, Jack, if we were able to pull one of these surveys. It's impossible. You can't do it because you can't catch everybody at the right time. But if you just took your typical Bubis Americanus.
Is that the Mencken phrase?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You said, did Trump hire hookers to pee on a bed or whatever?
Right.
What percentage do you think would say there's some validity to that?
The same percent that say Joe Biden's doing a good job, right? I mean, that's probably what it would be. He'd get 40% at least, right?
I think it would be 40%.
Yeah, at least, right?
Yeah.
Maybe more, right?
What is this, 10 years after it's been proven false? I mean...
About 5, right?
It's more than that, right?
Well, the Mueller, let's see, when did that come out? And I think that was 2019, when Mueller's report finally came down. And he said there was no...
Oh, but we all knew it was fake before that.
Oh, we knew it was fake before the election, right? If we're paying attention.
Right.
But their side didn't.
No.
And they, as you said, if you talk to them, they still probably think it's real. Hillary, still calls him an illegitimate president.
Right.
They still talk about Russia and Putin. I really think that we allowed or we backed Ukraine in a war against Russia because they had so identified Putin and Trump. It was like a war against Trump, right?
And they could have been one of those methinks the lady doth protest too much deals.
Yeah.
They could have actually been doing backroom deals with Putin himself. Think about it.
Well, I mean,
and that was to smoke screen it all.
Yeah.
It's projection by proxy.
Right. Because the question never came up. Why would Putin, or maybe, no, I should say the question came up. The answer was never a good answer.
Right.
Why would Putin favor Trump?
Right.
Who's a tough guy who's going to keep him in place, right?
Uh-huh.
He got to take Crimea under Obama.
Yeah, just look at the basic facts of it.
Right.
Makes no sense.
No.
We've got to get better at hearing things that make no sense and not letting them run 90 yards down the field with the ball.
Right, right.
When it makes no sense.
Then that's right. And as Orwell said, every joke is a tiny revolution. And so we're at the point in our culture where we need to tell jokes.
Oh, yeah.
We need to tell transgressive jokes, jokes that rub the orthodoxy the wrong way. And so hats off to people like, even though their politics aren't.
It's time for a modest proposal.
Right, like Jonathan Swift, right? Eating the. You get in trouble for that today, when you. But someone like Dave Chappelle, who has enough clout that he could rub up against the orthodoxy and get away with it.
Oh, he freaks out his audience so badly they don't know what to do.
No.
Because they know they have a job.
Right.
Your job is to laugh at things that are correct.
Right.
And groan at things that are can in any way support truth.
Right. But Chappelle has enough clout with his audience that they're not even allowed to groan, right? Mm-hmm. So I remember, he got in the biggest dust up with the Jussie Smollett stuff, talking about trans stuff and whatnot. But he, and that one sequence, he was telling a joke about how he was all for, he was a pro-choice, right? Mm-hmm. And he goes, oh, yeah, you're pro-choice, yeah. And he said, yeah, he goes, and he says, if you want if the bitch wants to kill that baby, I'm with it because I don't want to pay for it, or something like that.
Right.
He was obviously, undercutting their
He
own
was reeling
arguments.
them in.
Right, that's right. Threw the line out, reeled them in, and at that point, they don't know.
Yeah.
This they don't know whether to laugh or not. But yeah, there's a tiny revolution with every good joke, right? Every good joke that cuts to the heart of the problems we're facing is a necessary and good revolutionary act. So.
And I've always contended that one of the most effective ways to attack leftists is through mockery and through by making fun of them, and just because that takes away that wonderful
sense of
holier than thou thing that they have,
that aura,
that
the halo,
and this proves it,
right?
Because if you effectively do that, not only does it makes other people kind of mad to be fooled like that. To them, they take you to court and they want to kill you.
They want to put you in prison.
Yeah.
You tell a joke, and you have lost an election, and you're desperate to find someone to blame, right? Okay, you tried blaming Trump and Putin and everyone else. That doesn't work. So let's get Doug Mackey, right? Poor Doug Mackey.
Doug Mackey.
Put him in prison, And but that goes back to the ultimate charge against Clinton. The people come up to me and say, "Are you one of those people who believe that they killed 57 people?" I said, "I don't know about 57, but how many does it take before? How many bodies does it take before you think maybe these aren't people that should be in the White House ever again, right?" So, but that's where we are today. Hey, speaking of being in a good place, we're here one right now, of course, at Real Media.
Oh yeah.
And we would encourage anyone who's listening who wants a place where you can get full service audio, video production, get your own podcast. And we've encouraged, I know we have some people have come in to do their own, which is good. And it's kind of fun to do. And of course, you're not going to do it as well as we do, but it's a given. So, you're competing for the second best. And
no jokes.
No jokes. There is if you're a member of any kind of establishment, you cannot tell a joke, right?
That's right.
If you belong to a corporation, if you have a job that
has an HR department,
or has a 401k attached to it, or an HR department, right? Yeah. By the way, there's a word of advice to would-be young people coming up: do not work for any organization that has an in-house HR department.
Don't do it,
because they're going to get you sooner or later.
And life is so much easier when you don't follow that path.
Yeah, honestly. In fact, just a closing note is that, by the way, this is Real Media here in Overland Park. I saw this survey just today. 18% of employers admit to having fired someone over a joke. Right?
Really?
Yeah. Fortunately, my career, I was never fired. I was fired, but never for telling a joke. So
you were smart enough to marry someone who was affiliated with a real job.
Who has a pension and health coverage. Right.
Right.
Gave me a lot of latitude. Hey, well, thank you all for listening, and we'll be back next week, I guess, here on Upstream
with Cashel and Edge.